Welcome and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the issues and updates for the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners on this October 4, 2022. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up?
Thank you, Chair Smith. All commissioners are present today. Commissioner Savas is here. He's on his way in. We'll start with Water Environment Services. Chair, if you would please convene as the Water Environment Services Board.
We'll recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Water Environment Services.
All right, you are meeting as the Water Environment Services Board. This is a request for consent agenda, approval of a construction contract with Colton Homes for the Fishers Forest Park Collection System Rehab Project. Contract value is $664,211. Funding is through Water Environment Services operating funds. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geis is the Director of Water Environment Services. Go ahead.
Morning, Commissioners. This is a project we've had on our 5-year capital improvement plan. If you're not familiar with this area, it's out Redland Road and then Fisher Mill Road and across the street from the Fisher Mill ballparks or sports complex, I think they call it. It's 26 homes built in 1971. The collection system, and it's basically a large on-site septic system. So a collection system leading to on-site treatment. And the collection system needs to be replaced. So that's what this project does. Phase 2 will be next year, and we'll be doing some work on the treatment.
Are the property owners going to be assessed any upgrades, or is the West completely paying for this project?
Yes, West.
Well, that's a good deal.
Well, they've been paying, I mean, the collection system was put in 1971. I don't know when it was transferred to the county, but certainly by the 80s.
I see.
So they've been paying their monthly.
We have two commissioners with lights on. Who was first, gentlemen? Go ahead.
So, can we say then that the fees paid by the Fishers Forest Park over the years has paid for this upgrade?
I think that's very fair to say,
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so this one struck me kind of weird. I didn't think that the West District went out that far.
It doesn't. I mean, it's an island, basically.
So they are ratepayers?
They are, yes.
They've been ratepayers for how many years?
At least since the 80s. I know the county and West did upgrades out there in the early 80s.
So are those two streets, those cul-de-sacs, are those public roads?
They are. They are county roads.
So there's one on-site treatment facility,
Right.
and that was gifted
Yeah.
to West.
You can
That's
call
not
it-
really a gift.
No, it's not.
So do we do that?
We've done that in the past. The reason that we have boring is because somehow the county was asked to take it over. The reason we have Hoodland is because the county at some point was asked to take it over. And the reason we have Fisher Forest is because at some point the county was asked to take it over.
Well, there are some folks that are unrelated to this, but there are some folks that are in unincorporated neighboring the city of Lake Oswego that are facing some exorbitant costs to repair their failing septics. And it's like 40+ thousand per property.
Mhm.
So it just doesn't, we're not asking for the 40,000. I believe it's that particular sewer system out there or the cities. It just seems that there's not really, I won't say, I don't know where is equity or not, but it just seems to be a little bit out of balance that we've got a property outside the urban growth boundary, and we've got this $600,000 burden. So what is the math? What's the mathematical contribution from each of those property owners for? I mean,
Well,
are they paying the full? Were they a part of the Tri-Cities, or were they part of CCSD 1?
They would have been part of CCSD 1, yeah.
Well, the question before us today is this particular property, although Commissioner Savas raises a good point that probably have a conversation later about.
Sure, I mean, that's exactly how these things happen, is there's an
It is
issue.
interesting. That was we own this. So any other questions or objections to this going forward? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could get some answers to that,
Sure.
for certain, I'd like to just know what generation of income came off that for that capital repair. I'd never heard of that in all the years of being part of Tri-Cities and West and CCSD discussions that we had a property outside like that island.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hoodland and Boring are the same way.
Those I heard about.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you
It's
very
20
much. Let's move on. Commissioners, Gary,
All right,
what's
next, would you convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board, please, Chair?
I will recess as a Water and Environment Services and convene as a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
You are
Gary.
now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board. District Board members, I'm seeking your direction. When would you like to hold the next NCPRD Board meeting? I have two options for you, on Wednesday, November 30th, or Wednesday, December 7th. It will be held within the boundaries of the district at the Concord School. You could choose a daytime meeting, your normal meeting time of 10 a.m., or we could do an evening meeting of 6 p.m., which you've also done in the past. I'm just seeking direction from you. Generally, your calendars are clear at this point, for both those nights or days. So I'm just seeking your direction so we could schedule it, get it on the books, and let everyone know.
Commissioners, I'd like to hear your opinions on what you want to do about this. Commissioner Savas.
Well, I'm not here to pick which day, but I think we ought to be consistent on the time of day and also whether it's the fourth Wednesday or whatever it may be, that it's something that people can rely upon. But I have heard, and even recently, I'm still hearing a lot of people that are complaining that, for example, that their opportunities to speak are during the hours in which they work. So we have always held, with the exception of recently, we've always held the NCPRD Board of Directors meetings at night within the district, and the last one was scheduled at 10 a.m. here. So those are two anomalies that I would prefer not to see again. But I would like to keep it at night, as typically maybe the same start time as or near the same start time as the DAC meetings. That's what people are accustomed to. That's my
The
input.
reason, Gary, for holding them in here is because coming out of COVID, Commissioners, we've had new meeting requirements, and that is Zoom must be available. Our camera crew must be there to film it, and we must be able to have a very strong internet service to transmit that. So whereas we've had these meetings even before we didn't have these technical requirements, and quite frankly, we're going to have this in the Concord School, which Gary has accelerated the construction timeline to accommodate us, correct, Gary?
Yes, we've been working to have the Concord School internet ready since January 2022. And because of supply chain issues, we've had a part on order for 6 months. That's absolutely true. So I've directed staff, find whatever it takes to make it work by November 1st, and they said they will. So.
While we do have properties in the district to conduct meetings, for instance, the Aquatic Center and some of the other scattered parks in there, they are not equipped to meet our legal obligations of public meetings requests that has now come down from the state of Oregon. So that's why it's been a bump in the road. So Commissioners, if you meet anybody from the community who's complaining, would you please tell them we're doing our very best to meet the legal requirements of all the technology that we have to supply now. So I have heard evening meetings, and Paul, what time of day is that?
Is it 6 or 6:30? 6, I believe. But the other thing, Chair, just to clarify one of my comments, the other thing I've heard too recently is that there's a strong request for getting night meetings back for the BCC, like we had to once. So I just want to let you know that I'm hearing multiple.
Oh, I'm hearing that too, and as you know, Commissioner Savas, did you tell the people who you're hearing that from that the BCC, we all agreed to wait till after campaign season to start that back up? You know that decision was made. Thank you very much. Now, Gary, moving ahead, we have decided at 6 p.m., November 30th or December 7th. Commissioner Scholl.
Let's just go ahead and do it on 30 November. Keep that December schedule as free as we can, because we know we're going to have a lot of things going on in December. November 30th, 6 p.m., Concord School. Sounds like a good idea.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Commissioners, are we in agreement? Gary, do you have instruction to move forward?
We have instruction. Thank you very much. We'll schedule it for Wednesday, November 30th at 6 p.m. at the Concord School. We'll get the
Thank you
notice
very
out now.
much.
Thank you very much. Chair, would you now convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. Next, we'll do consent agenda for the regular county commission. We'll start with elected officials. Who is here from the sheriff's office to talk about these items? Both of you, come on up. All right, thank you. All right, first, consent agenda request. One, approval of an amendment extending the duration and increasing funding of the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for services related to the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program. The amendment value is $25,000 for 1 year. Agreement value is now $50,000 for 2 years. The amendment funding is through federal funds and a $1,250 match from budgeted county general funds. We have Marcus Mendoza and Malcolm McDonald from the Sheriff's Office. Please go ahead, whoever's doing this one.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. For the record, my name is Lieutenant Marcus Mendoza. I will be presenting on 5 new grant agreements and 1 grant amendment, as just mentioned, all related to traffic enforcement in Clackamas County. The Clackamas County Sheriff's Office has been awarded these grants over the past 5 years, enhancing operations which helps improve roadway safety. The amendment to the Motor Carrier Safety Action Plan, this amendment with the Oregon Department of Transportation extends to the duration of the grant through the end of September of next year. In addition, it increases the project funding by $25,000 from the beginning of this month through the end of September of next year. This grant aims to provide qualifying safety inspections on commercial vehicles operating on Clackamas County roadways. Clackamas County Sheriff's Office will be reimbursed up to $23,750 and will provide match from previously budgeted county general funds support in the amount of $1,250.
Any questions or comments for the presenter? Any objections? Seeing none.
Item 2, approval of a grant agreement and grant application lifecycle form for the Distracted Driving Overtime Enforcement Campaign Grant with Oregon Impact. Grant value is $22,500 for 1 year. Funding is through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration with a $4,500 match from budgeted county general funds.
That is correct. This grant agreement from Oregon Impact provides funding for sustained distracted driving enforcement throughout the year. In addition, this grant will raise awareness of the dangers of distracted driving with an emphasis during the month of April for the 10th Annual National Distracted Driving Awareness Month. As mentioned, the CCSO will be reimbursed up to $22,500 and provide $4,500 in matching funds from previously budgeted general fund support.
Questions or comments for this item? Commissioner Scholl?
Lieutenant Mendoza, is this grant for putting the whack on people who are driving their cell phones instead of their cars? Is this what this one is?
Yes, that falls under the distracted driving, yes.
Good deal. Thanks.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
So I have a question, and it kind of relates to really all of them, and I'm going through them one at a time here just to clarify that that the question I have is not necessarily addressed, but do we have a more specific strategic plan goal of reducing deaths as a result of distracted driving or as a result of driving under the influence of intoxicants and so on and so forth? Do we have specific targets in our strategic plan?
These grants are awarded through ODOT, and I believe a lot of this money actually comes through federal funds for specific purposes. We're able to work these grants, but they have to be targeting these specific items. So as an overall strategic plan, it would fall in with the reduction of injuries and loss of life on our roadways.
Yeah, and it's maybe not for yourself, but maybe for the board. Where I'm going with this is I appreciate the grant and the purpose, but there should be some, despite the grants, with or without them, there should be some metric that says deaths from X, there's a goal to improve all these different things when it comes to public safety and traffic safety. Just thought that that's something we can work on. I thought they'd be more clear. Gary?
I believe it is in the Sheriff's Office Strategic Plan Performance Clackamas. I don't have it in front of me, but I think this is something the Sheriff's Office has as one of her goals. Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Any objections to going forward? Seeing none. Thank
Item
you.
3, approval of a grant agreement and grant application lifecycle form for the Driving Under the Influence of Intoxicants Overtime High Visibility Enforcement Grant with Oregon Impact. Grant value is $20,000 for 1 year. Funding is through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration with a $4,000 match from budgeted county general funds.
This grant agreement from Oregon Impact provides funding for CCSO to participate in 2 National Highway Traffic Safety Administration national events with a focus on violations of driving under the influence of intoxicants. In addition, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office can participate in up to 6 additional operation events, depending on funding and availability. As mentioned, CCSO will be reimbursed up to $20,000 and provide $4,000 in matching funds from previously budgeted county general fund support.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 4, approval of a grant agreement and grant application life cycle form for the Pedestrian Safety Enforcement Overtime Grant with Oregon Impact. Grant value is $5,000 for 1 year. Funding is through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration with a $1,000 match from budgeted county general funds.
This grant agreement from Oregon Impact provides funding to conduct pedestrian safety enforcement overtime operations, which will occur at specific timeframes agreed upon with Oregon Impact. CCSO will be reimbursed the $5,000 for this project and will provide $1,000 in matching funds as previously budgeted in the general fund.
Any questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 5, approval of a grant agreement and grant application life cycle form for the Speed Overtime Enforcement Grant with Oregon Impact. Grant value is $10,000 for 1 year. Funding is through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration with a $2,000 match from budgeted county general funds.
And this grant agreement from Oregon Impact is for CCSO to provide sustained speed enforcement throughout the year. In addition, CCSO will provide a press release for operations to inform the public about speed enforcement campaigns conducted throughout the grant cycle. The Clackamas County Sheriff's Office will be reimbursed up to $10,000 for this project and will provide $2,000 in matching funds from previously budgeted county general fund support.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 6, approval of a grant agreement and grant application life cycle form for the Safety Belt Overtime Enforcement Grant with the Oregon Department of Transportation. Grant value is $10,000 for 1 year. Funding is through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration with a $2,500 match from budgeted county general funds.
The purpose of this grant agreement from the Oregon Department of Transportation is for Clackamas County Sheriff's Office to provide safety belt enforcement during the period established by ODOT. In addition, this grant aims to ensure compliance with local safety belt restraint laws and provide educational activities to the public to ensure continued compliance. As mentioned, Clackamas County Sheriff's Office will be reimbursed up to $10,000 for this project and will provide $2,500 in matching funds from previously budgeted county general fund support.
Questions or comments? I have one. On all of these grants that are coming through is wonderful. You're adding more money to the budget for traffic safety. However, do we have enough patrol to implement what these grants are indicated to do?
Yeah, we do. Yes. These grants have been renewed over the last 5 years, and our traffic enforcement staffing is the same, so these should be worked.
So we can expect more enforcement with these continued grants.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Item 7, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the duration of Improving People's Access to Community-Based Treatment, Supports, and Services Grant Program with the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. The amendment value is $208,412.48 for 2 years. The total grant value is increased to $708,400 for 4 years. Funding is through the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. No county general funds are involved.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Captain Malcolm McDonald for the Sheriff's Office. This is a continued grant. We were awarded additional funding for another biennium. This has allowed us to embed a mental health senior case manager in the parole and probation office to work with our most challenging population suffering from mental health disorders and substance abuse disorders at a high risk, high need, and often in and out of the jail and in and out of ERs. And has had an amazing impact having that mental health caseworker in our office to directly interact with the population, and continues to make great progress. And so it's a grant that I think we've been very fortunate to receive, and so I ask for your approval.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I want to thank you for this, Malcolm, because I think it's probably one of the best things that we do in terms of dealing with folks that have issues that don't belong in jail. How many folks have we gotten vetted from the mental health program, and how do we increase the this program? Actually, is the other question I have.
I think we're all trying to find solutions to dealing with individuals that are suffering from mental illness and involved in the justice system in the state of Oregon. Locally, and those on supervision, I am finding the ways, additional funding, and trying to partner with our behavioral health here in the county to find solutions that keep individuals out of jail that are suffering from mental illness. But options are few and far between, and we know that as a state, and we know that as a county, too. So we continue to have a lot of work to do locally and at the state level to find solutions that isn't jail or a hospital for someone that's suffering from mental illness. So this is just one piece of the puzzle, and it's, for me, something I've been passionate about, to have someone from behavioral health in our office. The population is there, and when we have them and can engage them with that service, it's already proven to be successful to get them one, wanting to report to see this behavioral health case manager, who is very talented working with the population, has found that they prefer to see her in our office, which was something that is unique, because often our office is looked at as a place where people may not want to come. But that says a lot to the staff, my parole and probation officers, the rapport they build with this population, and having a behavioral health specialist there. So this is one piece of the puzzle, but it's a very complicated and challenging puzzle here in the state of Oregon with our lack of services.
So at this point, we just have one person who's
No,
doing this, or
it's
you have multiple people?
We have one behavioral health specialist in the office. As far as the number of clients we're working with,
Okay.
it is ongoing, so we have a constant stream of.
And is this something that we would have an opportunity at the state level to request additional revenue for, is what I'm wondering?
I would think so, and support from behavioral health to complement the system in the future. But impacts will continue, and there's a number of counties participating in it in different ways. We're the only parole and probation that has an impacts grant, and so we're unique in that way. But yeah, it's one piece of the puzzle.
Thank you for that.
Thank you,
Commissioner Fisher.
Hey, thank you for being here, both of you. Really appreciate it. I just putting a word out there. You might have heard from my office that I'm really interested in doing a little bit deeper dive in. You have heard, so we're getting that scheduled. Okay, I won't need to say anything else, but with the understanding that funding for parole and probation has been reduced because of the formula with Measure 110, and there's some challenges there. And so I'm really wanting to understand that as we gear up for this next legislative session. We may need to be putting our muscle behind making sure that our funding formulas work for our community-based law enforcement services.
Yes, I agree, and the Association of Counties has always been at the table with the community corrections directors for this, and so.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
we will talk more.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, thank you both for being here. You just mentioned earlier that we have one behavioral health person on staff. Is that one person on staff 24/7, or just one individual, one FTE?
This is one FTE embedded in the parole and probation office, so working with the POs side by side, and as individuals that meet the criteria for impact, suffering mental illness, she's able to engage with them. Often it's a population or individual she's already worked with in her capacity working out of the walk-in crisis center. We're fortunate this particular employee has 25 years of experience with the county, so it's a familiar with the population we work with, which the population parole and probation works with is the most challenging if they're involved in our system. Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges going on. So it continues to prove to be a huge benefit, one, to reduce the utilization of jail, reduce the utilization of ERs by this population, and get them housed too, and we provide a wealth of supports for them.
Great. Well, thank you for that. I look forward to seeing the metrics on how those are performing, both in the jail, parole, probation, and so on. So,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary, what's up?
All right, next, Finance Department. Item 1, approval of a goods and services contract with TVW for janitorial services at various county facilities. The contract value is $9,441,470.16 over 5 years. The funding is entirely through budgeted county general funds. That's a whopper. All right, Elizabeth Comfort, sorry. I should not editorialize. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. Introduce your guest and go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Comfort. With me is Daniel Robertson from our Facilities Management Department. And good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, we have a contract for the next 5 years for janitorial services. This is part of formerly known as the QRF program with the state, now called Oregon Forward. And so there are approximately 4 groups that can bid on cleaning our services because we are government. And so we are first required to go through this organization for cleaning services. We are large. We have a lot of facilities, so there's only 2 approximately that are large enough to not bid, but apply for working with Clackamas County. And so we are contracting with TVW. They've been with us for at least the last 12 years, and so we've refreshed. We've done a new contract with them, gone through all of the buildings, and there's a very formulated layout for all the services that we request from them, and it's at market rate, so it is a fair, appropriate cost. But it has gone up as service costs have increased, so we request your approval for the next 5 years to continue with TVW.
Thank you. Questions or comments from commissioners on this? Seeing no objections, thank you.
All right, next, Juvenile Department. Item 1, approval of a contract with Volunteers of America of Oregon to provide community monitoring services, contract not to exceed $327,563 for 1 year. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Christina McMahon's the Director of Juvenile Department. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Christina McMahon with the Juvenile Department here in Clackamas County. I'm here to request approval of a contract with Volunteers of America of Oregon to operate for the next year a pilot program. Our hope, and that program's called the Community Monitoring Program. Our hope is that we will be able to reduce the number of costly detention beds that we have with Multnomah County by using this service, which provides 7-day-a-week service, evenings, weekends, holidays, when our juvenile court counselors are not working, and being able to access that service in lieu of putting kids in detention. We are anticipating our detention bed rate will rise to approximately $200,000. It's $199,000 and some change per year for 1 bed. So $327,000 was put into our budget for the current fiscal year, and we are hoping if we can do this successfully, we can reduce those beds that we're contracting with.
So this was a discussion item during budget, correct, Gary?
I don't remember. Did it come up?
During our budget, we discussed this before because of what's happening at Multnomah County, who have been quite generous with us, but their costs have gone up, and therefore I think it was the intent of this board that we reimburse that bed cost. Now, going forward, this money is coming from our general fund, correct?
Yes.
So what's the state of Oregon going to do to help us mitigate this problem as they continue to pass laws telling us to do this and this and this? By the way, this is a good service, but we're going to need help from either the federal government and or the state government on this issue.
Yes, actually, I was in a meeting yesterday that was we were talking about what we believe will be upcoming federal funds. And one of the areas that was mentioned was alternatives to detention. So we believe by doing this pilot and having some data to establish that actually this works in Clackamas County and we can maintain public safety while using this service, that could help make us much more competitive when it comes to grants. Also, my understanding is that there is quite a focus planned in the Judiciary Committee of the upcoming legislative session when it comes to juvenile matters. The juvenile judges in the state have gotten together and formed a juvenile delinquency improvement project that they're working on, and things such as detention and being able to fund community-based services are front and center. So that's something we're very actively involved in. We understand the challenge, which is why we're trying to figure out how to reduce the demand for detention in a safe way that still keeps our community safe.
Yeah, and this board is certainly want to be engaged in that during the legislative session. Gary, since this is a pilot program, this is a one-time funding from our general fund, and we'll reevaluate at next budget cycle, correct?
Correct.
And at that time, if this is to continue, we will need metrics.
Yes.
Yes, and the possibility of additional funds, because we cannot keep funding even at 327,000 or whatever it is. Yes, and then adding more and more and more because the need is more and more and more. So there's going to be, there's a point on all these social services that we can only do what we can do. But thank you very much for this. Any other questions or comments? Any objections to going forward? Seeing none.
All right, thank you. Next, Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Southern Oregon University Market Research Institute for a business-friendly environment study. Total value is $13,750. Funding is through Economic Development Lottery dollars allocated for the Office of Economic Development Operations. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt, Dan Johnson, Department of Transportation and Development. You know this. You have a performance measure that basically outlines the fact that by 2024, 75% of businesses working in Clackamas County will report a business-friendly environment. It's a part of your Performance Clackamas Plan. Well, you have specific percentages, you have numbers, you have objectives. That means we got to go collect some data. And so essentially, the Office of Economic Development has worked and secured and located an entity, which is obviously Southern Oregon University Market Research Institute, who has done similar work throughout the state. And this IGA is essentially a request to put forward a cooperative agreement to have them perform that analysis for us. So I'd be happy to answer. I or Cindy Moore would be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding that.
Questions or comments, commissioners? Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I'm really glad to see you're doing it. What kind of information are you expecting to find in terms of this? And just any idea? I
What
know
are we
Cindy's
expecting to find? That
Yeah, what do you expect?
95% of our businesses are satisfied with the service and find Clackamas County a business-friendly environment. If you look,
We've got to, let's get that on tape and put that, get PGA on that, okay?
that wasn't a quote, make sure we're clear. As you look through the scope of work, actually page 8 of your packet and page 9, it really outlines kind of what that scope of work is we're looking to secure from this entity. It talks about defining the business population size and characteristics of the business in Clackamas County. It talks about making sure that they have a physical location in Clackamas County. Talks about a discussion with them, identifying the strengths and weaknesses they see within our operations as we support businesses throughout Clackamas County. So these are just general questions that are out there, and trying to get, there are some businesses that we work very closely with. I mean, we can attest to the relationships that Cindy and others have, that you have, that we have with very large corporations. This is trying to get a more diverse survey of all those businesses to the extent they're willing to participate. You always have that problem. But a broader understanding of what their thoughts are about the services we provide to make business in Clackamas County more successful.
And so this is going to be not only the larger targeted, the traded sector, you're going to be talking up and down the chain of the smaller businesses that actually kind of feed into that economy.
We will talk to them, and to the extent they want to participate, which we're very hopeful. Yep.
Okay, let's keep posted on that. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just wondering, Dan, if you're asking, not necessarily today, but suggesting that we bump the goal of 75% of businesses working in Clackamas County report a business-friendly environment. You want to bump that to 95%?
No other questions?
Yeah, no other questions. Good one. Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, thank you. I know this amount of money being $13,000 is one that Administrator Schmidt probably could have approved and wouldn't have ever come before this board, but I'm really happy that it is before this board because it is a board priority. And I'll be interested in just knowing how it's going. I think we have very engaged members in our community through our chambers, through our Economic Development Commission, and others in the community that can really help inform this.
Yeah.
And I think Clackamas I have a small business in Clackamas. There's a reason why I moved a law practice from Portland to Clackamas. It is a friendlier place to do business, and I would really like us, from our policy view, to say, well, what do we do at the county commission level to assure that we are continuing to provide this environment? Because the foundation for all of it, for all of the economic activity that gets people working, that allows them to pay income taxes, that allows them to do all of those things, starts with the foundation of our business climate. So it's really important.
And the services you provide, the transportation systems, all of that
Yes.
are all entwined in that ability to create a business-friendly environment. So,
Yep,
yes,
that's right. Absolutely. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no objections to this moving forward,
All right, next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Labor for Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program grant to expand and enhance Clackamas County Veterans Workforce Program. Initial grant value is $197,469 to be renewed annually for a total grant value of $851,055 over 3 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Labor. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. If you grant this, this would meet the demand for services for those who have served our country. This funding will allow for an additional workforce staff to meet the demand for program services. The increased staff capacity allows 3 critical program improvements. It adds mental health navigation, develops a more streamlined employment pathways for high-demand professions, and creates a fast track for training curriculum for county departments and employees to better serve veterans. Through this process, CFC will serve at least 75 veterans in year 1 and 80 veterans in subsequent 2 years.
great. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections to this moving forward, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, thanks, Rod, for this. This has been something dear to dear in our hearts, I think, for a really long time. So do you also keep data on what the retention rate is once the veterans are
Yes.
pushed through this program? What kinds of occupations, I mean, off the top of your head, that are they generally kind of moving into?
It's really all over the place. It really, whatever they bring to the table, we're reconnecting them to those types of businesses and then doing the extra work with those employers to accommodate anything that the veteran may be dealing with. We have a lot of PTSD, we have brain injury, those type of
Right.
things, and that's that extra piece that we provide to the employer. So when an incident occurs, they're ready for it, and we're there to support.
And will this also include getting folks to the, you know, the area where employers are looking for workers, and we're specifically targeting veterans to get them to those,
Yes.
those convenings? Okay,
Yes.
that'll be part of it, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no objections to this,
Item 2, approval to accept a grant award from the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration for school-based health center expansion at Clackamas High School and Adrian C. Nelson High School. Initial grant value is $200,000 to be renewed annually for a total grant value of $400,000 over 2 years. Funding is through the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, the administrator mentioned the schools, so I'll mention one of the services. This new funding will support service to expanded comprehensive medical, dental, behavioral health, and substance abuse treatment to low-income and underserved residents of North Clackamas School District.
questions or comments? Seeing no objections to this moving forward, thank you.
Item 3, approval of a letter of agreement with CARE Oregon for expansion of intake services at Clackamas Health Centers. Agreement value is $157,000 for 1 year. Funding through CARE Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this revenue agreement is to support expansion of and access to intake services to decrease wait times, divert CARE Oregon members and clients to appropriate crisis services, and positively impact clients' social determinants of health, including medication access and connection to existing zero suicide teams.
Questions or comments for this? Seeing no objections to moving forward?
Item 4, approval of a lease agreement with Canby Foursquare Church for space to provide women, infants, and children program services. Lease value is $0 for 1 year. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, although this is a no cost associated with this lease, signing the agreement is necessary to outline the expectations and notification requirements of the parties. So that's what this one is.
Thank you to the church for doing this.
Yes.
Yes. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 5, approval of a federal subrecipient agreement with Outside In for Hispanic Latinx outreach and engagement in the school-based health center at Milwaukee High School. Total value is $100,185 for 15 months. Funding through State of Oregon ARPA funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this agreement will help eliminate health disparities by providing students connections with the health center, health education, school leadership, and youth workforce engagement through the Milwaukee High School Wellness Center, run by Outside In, an organization for public benefit. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you, Rod.
Thank you. All these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda on the consent agenda. Back to the issues list. I'm going to change the order for the first item. We'll start with the Domestic Violence Awareness Month suggestion. So, Commissioners, this is a request for the board to proclaim October 22 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And if you agree, we'll put it on a future business meeting agenda. So we have Aaron Hinkleman, who's from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and also Director of A Safe Place, and Sarah Van Dyke from Health, Housing, Human Services.
Please introduce yourselves and go ahead.
My name is Erin Hinkleman. I am an employee with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and been the director for A Safe Place Family Justice Center for a little over 2 years.
I'm Sarah Van Dyke. I'm the Domestic Violence Systems Coordinator in Clackamas County. I work for Children, Family, and Community Connections.
Go ahead, thank you.
Yes, so we are here today to respectfully request to add a resolution to Thursday's agenda to declare October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Any further comments, Commissioners? We have a document in our possession, and I have read that over. And still to this day, I'm astonished by the statistics that you list in it. Maybe we should take a look at those. I assume these are nationwide statistics?
Some of the statistics included are national, and then we have some local statistics included
And I'm not
as well.
sure which it is. For instance, 1 in 4 women will experience physical violence, rape, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. In this day and age, in 2022, I find that striking and appalling. So that means 25% of the women that I run into on the street at the grocery store, or quite possibly on my job, would have experienced that.
Yep.
And I just, it strikes to my very core. You know, additionally, 32% of families with the Department of Human Services had domestic violence as a component in their case management in 2021. We could say, people were home, COVID, well, whatever. There are no excuses for violence upon children, none whatsoever. And I want to thank you for doing this. I'm bringing other comments from commissioners. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, thank you. This is something I know that's important to all of us here, and it is not acceptable to have domestic violence in our society, but it exists. And as we were meeting, I think monthly in past years, and then quarterly, and now because of COVID or since COVID, we haven't met at all. So I'm totally unfamiliar and not receiving any kind of updates as far as how we're doing. And I do know that there was a spike, as I understand, during COVID, and I'm just kind of curious how we're doing in that area. Is that spike? Are we coming down? The trending coming back down, and are we back to, I won't say normal, but are we back down to the base level prior to COVID?
Well, during COVID, the Family Justice Center was closed, so we did not have in-person activity. So as we've gotten in further into 2022, we're getting, I think, starting to get back to our normal numbers at the Family Justice Center around restraining orders and walk-ins. In terms of overall, there was a point during the pandemic where we did not see a lot of activity. I think it's coming back. We've seen, around strangulation, that has continued to go up. Because one of the reasons is we're looking at it more. So, I would say that we're back to normal.
Okay.
Especially as, children are back in school full-time and they may be disclosing, and so there's more activity around that. There's more potential for victims to seek services than there was during the pandemic.
Yeah, I did go to the website, the sheriff's website, and all your stuff would be embedded in the sheriff's office, right? Your data, your metrics, right? And I saw a lot of percentages, but not a number there. right? It was just, it looks like work's yet to be done, so I would like, if there's any way of getting a kind of report, I would like to get a report.
Yeah, we're actually working on a yearly domestic violence report for Clackamas County. So,
Okay, when you're finished and you're ready to present, just let Gary know. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning. My question was, what special or additional efforts during Domestic Violence Awareness Month will you be focusing on in terms of public awareness of counseling services available to people and families who are experiencing domestic violence or who have a threat of future domestic violence? What special actions are you going to take during this month?
So as far as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, it is about connecting those that are doing the work to end violence against women and their children. We have different events happening throughout the county. We have the lighting of the Oregon City elevator to raise public awareness with the purple lights that connects folks to services. And then as a walk-in center, we have staff available to really talk about the array of support and service that's available to survivors and connecting them to services such as counseling, ongoing safety planning, civil legal support, assistance with protective orders.
there are different activities that Clackamas Women's Services through the Family Justice Center is doing this month to raise awareness, and I think there's some giveaways and some other things that they're doing. It's stuff that happens all year, but they ramp it up during October to, everything's purple and purple ribbons and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Fisher.
There has been a lot of increased awareness about the uniqueness of the crime of domestic violence and how it differs potentially from other crimes, which is evidence in the strangulation being a felony. One thing that's been troubling me, so I'm so happy that you're here today, the situation that happened in Multnomah County where the prosecutors made the case that a perpetrator should be held, they put the bail at the highest amount by statute of $2 million, and then a fund provided the, I guess it's called security of whatever percent that is, 10% of the amount of the bail, and he got out and he killed. And that happened in September of this year. Is there any talk about not allowing very dangerous people that that show the dangers, that have made the threats, of keeping them incarcerated until their trial, keeping them in jail? Is there any move at the legislature of making that situation unique? Because we know that they'll go after, the records will show under certain factors, they will commit the crime.
So we have various groups that work together in our community to look at high-risk cases. We have a high-risk response team, a lethality assessment team as well, that follow cases to keep an eye on those cases and talk about them on a regular basis and update each other. That is usually multidisciplinary with law enforcement and victim services and Clackamas Women's Services, et cetera, all at the table. So we do have those things in place to monitor hard cases. In terms of keeping someone in prison if they are, in the jail if they are high risk, those are conversations that happen in those teams, as well as, there's other venues. We have a fatality review team that we run every month. So there's lots of things in place to keep tabs on situations. Legislatively, we are looking at some things around the strangulation in terms of managing those cases as a high lethality within law enforcement. But other than legislation, I'm not sure that there's anything going on specifically.
Okay, well, keep me posted. It seems like it's a challenge in the statute when the judge is limited on how much bail they can require, and then people can be released, and if there are certain factors that show that this is a very, very dangerous person. Seems like we need to fix that. It's a problem.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, another thing that I think would be interesting if you have any information on it and track this, and I appreciate the first whereas, and says whereas domestic violence is a serious crime in Clackamas County that affects people of all races, ages, gender, and income levels. And I certainly know that, abuse, or most of the victims are women or spouse, both. but also children and elders and so forth that are in a family or a home environment. So I just like to know maybe what that data is showing currently, especially coming out of COVID, knowing that a lot of people can't afford to live on their own. A lot of elder folks have also experiencing abuse as well. I happen to know of a situation in that, so it kind of concerns me. I just want to know how broad it is.
We do see quite a few elder abuse protection orders coming through the Family Justice Center.
So about 20% of folks that we serve with assistance with protection orders through our center are folks that meet the criteria for 65 and older and/or identify with a disability.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any other comments or questions for this? Gary, do we need a vote on this?
No. Aaron and Sarah, are you available this Thursday?
We are.
It's on our
Can
calendar.
you do it this Thursday's business meeting, Chair?
That will be fine. I'd be very honored to sign this resolution. And thank you for your work on this. I know it can be trying at times for you both.
Thank you all for your support.
bet.
Great, we'll have it on this Thursday's business meeting agenda. Thank you. Next, Performance Clackamas Update, Policy and Decisions Implementation Team. Commissioners, we're coming before you before the end of the year on all 10 of your strategic results to give you a status update. This is the next in line. Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, will give the update. Go ahead, Nancy.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I'm here for the Build Public Trust Through Good Government, which is our policy and decisions group. And that is by 2024, county policies and decisions, service delivery, and board deliberations will be equitable, inclusive, and transparent. Our team members are, I am the committee chair, Everett Wild, Sherry Reedman, Martine Koblenz, Cindy Becker, Christina Fadenreck, Sue Hildick, Evelyn Miner-Lawrence, Chris Lyons, and Shannon Bays. And Tony Marinick has been special guest a couple of times. So when the group first got together, we really kind of struggled with a few items. We had a very long list of things we thought we could accomplish through this group, or at least we talked about. We had to really whittle that down because obviously we have short time, limited resources, and those types of things. So what I'm just going to go over today are some things that we've accomplished and some things that we continue to work on as well. So first is the research study, which is a project of Clackamas County and the Coalition of Communities of Color. The Equity Inclusion Office team continues to work with stakeholders regarding the project and the information we've learned. We do have a second stakeholder meeting coming up on October 31st. The Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion training has been completed by most managers and supervisors here at Clackamas County, and the EIO team is currently building the all-staff training. Each department has been provided a list of contacts for their Title II, which is the ADA compliance, and the Title VI, which prohibits employment discrimination compliance. And we have assistance that are being provided to the departments to help them through some of those processes. The advisory board committees, the ABCs, we now have consistency between the ABCs, and that was determined, and we had a long discussion about what should or should not go on the intranet, our internet, what should be public, what can be recorded, those types of things. We also have check-ins, and how they conduct business has also been made consistent. This past summer, the Public and Government Affairs convened 2 focus groups with residents from across the county. The panels were mostly the most demographically diverse that the county has ever put together. And the information learned will be incorporated into a survey of the community. We're hoping through this, the PGA will learn which issues resonate with residents based on their backgrounds and locations, which will help us, Clackamas County, communicate with the stakeholders. The bias review of the county code and departmental policies has been completed as well. Some of the things that we continue to work on, we are working on equity questions and a process. We have a draft put together right now. We will work on that, and that's something that we'll get to departments and programs to use as an equity lens when developing documents, projects, and public materials. This would provide more transparency for the BCC as well as the public. And we're hoping that this would become a part of the fabric of the county as we move forward. PGA and HR are in discussions regarding training for how to engage staff and communities when it comes to onboarding and implementing phases for current employees. And lastly, the team is working on updating the material for policy sessions as issues to provide the BCC and the public with documents that are easier to read and consume. This will include adding plain language, suggestions to web developers on what key search terms to include on the website, as well as other updates. And of course, this will be vetted with the county administrator as well as the BCC before that would be put into place. The main barrier that we really do run into is, of course, trying to pull together a large group of people from our communities that are diverse in demographics as well as location. That takes a lot of time and money to do that. So we're being able to do that in small chunks, but being able to do that in a larger chunks has been difficult to do. And that is my update for you today.
Thank you, Nancy. Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, Commissioner Savas, go ahead.
So Nancy, appreciate your presentation, and some of my questions earlier today were around metrics, right? And I think on some of these, I do know we kind of touch on that in the budget process. There's some metrics that are displayed, and I'm looking for or suggesting maybe, especially with the upcoming issue around trying to find where we cut the budget to meet next year's financial obligations in years forward. And it would seem that the metrics right now would be beneficial in determining what we should continue to do and maybe what we should rethink or so forth. And where can, as I was going through this morning, thinking about this for a while now, how or where do we find them? And should it not be really more apparent maybe in the packet when we're reviewing the consent agenda, so how we're doing on some of those metrics? It seems that it'd be a way to not necessarily soften us, but ramp us into the awareness of the metrics and how we're doing versus continuing doing the same thing continuously without having any kind of a sense of where we are.
Yeah, that's a really good conversation, and one of the things that we're working on right now is with Performance Clackamas is really performance metrics. Some of the metrics that we have right now aren't quite getting us there where we want to see where our performance is and where we're making headway into certain areas. So that is a great conversation. We do have some of those metrics in place. We have some of those that we can pull out and take a look at, but we are still working on getting some stronger metrics in place to help us do that.
Yeah, just want to remind everyone that we kind of initiated this effort in 2013, 2014, and I was like aghast when the administrator at the time had said it's going to be 5 years before we have that, and now it's almost 10 years and we're still not there. So that's just, I want to just point that out.
So it's not true, we're there. It could be better, but it's there. So your staff report has on the cover there, strategic plan alignment. It's there. Departments are measuring this.
Yeah,
It could be, yeah, absolutely could be better, no question about it. But we have been using metrics as part of the budget proposals we bring to you. It's just, we could certainly enhance it, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, where do I find the metrics, for example, like right now, and I've been trying to searching, and it's not necessarily in the packet, it could be, but I'm figuring out, where do I find those metrics right now on any of these?
So we've been collecting metrics since I've been in this position, and Christopher Hawkins and I do have those, and we have it in Power BI. We're trying to figure out how to make that also public facing, but we do have that data for you that we've been collecting from the departments.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul, for that. And a follow-up along Commissioner Savas's questioning. Moving forward to the future, this board will be reevaluating Performance Clackamas in our January meeting, our goal-setting meeting. And would it behoove us to consider goals that are in alignment with core county services? And in order to do that, we have to define what a core county service is. And I've had a private conversation with Gary about this, and I've not yet presented it to the board, but I kind of am here. And I've asked our facilitator, and Gary will ask Marv, his last name? Weidner, to look at that for us. And anecdotally, I've done some research on what core county services are for the state of Oregon, and many of them are constitutional and they're listed. And however, our Constitution has changed over time, but some of the language is very old-fashioned and dated. So I'm prepared to share my list of core county services with anybody who wants to see them. But I think to Commissioner Savis's comments about the budget going forward, this report is extremely comprehensive and there's a lot behind it. Do we want to continue on this line, or do we want to reevaluate what we're doing as a government and what we're expecting out of government as we go forward? These are questions that I'm just presenting. I am not expecting answers today. I want my commissioners just to be mindful of how we think this might go forward. And it's always good, like Commissioner Savis said, 2013 we did this. I was a commissioner back then. It's been in play for enough years to see if this is what we want to continue on. We're entering a new era. We've said that a lot. We're entering a new era, so maybe it's time that we change how we look at what we're doing as a county government. Anything else from commissioners on this, Gary?
Nope, this was just an update today. So we're doing this between now and the end of the year. You're going to hear from all 10 of your results, just to give you some updates and closure so that when you do meet in January, you can decide which of these you want to keep, what you want to change, how you want to refresh your strategic plan for the county.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate Commissioner Smith's comments, and I don't disagree with that. There are the core services. I think that's important. I think sometimes we look at our budgetary things from a monetary standpoint. Is it revenue neutral? Does it pay for itself and so on? And that's certainly one lens, but if we're going to look at core services, we certainly need to be able to have, I think, access. And in my prior roles in government, we worked towards having a monthly report on all the metrics. Didn't have it discussed, didn't have anyone present it, but it was included in our monthly board packet. So having access to the metrics is I think, is really our responsibility. It's almost an imperative, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments on this, Gary?
All right, we'll move on. Thanks, Nancy. Next, your business meeting agenda review for this Thursday, October 6, 2022, 10 a.m. You'll have a presentation on the awards the county has received from the National Association of Counties. You'll have the Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation and all the consent agenda items from today. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know before Thursday. Next, Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead.
Solid Waste Commission, staffed by the Department of Transportation and Development, currently has one opening on their commission due to resignation of a member representing collection service franchise holders. The board is nominating Will Mathias for a first term to the board.
Commissioners, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savis has moved that Will Mathias be appointed to the Solid Waste Commission. Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further comments? Seeing none, Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Last item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Scholl, we're going to have you go first.
Yes, thank you very much. On 26 October will be the next Metro Policy Advisory Committee meeting. At that meeting, we will discuss the recommendations for a regional pricing policy development for the regional transportation plan that's due to Metro in November. And the staff, I'm sure, is going to be working on recommendations on that. So I'll get with Administrator Schmidt and see when we can give the board a heads up on some of those ideas, okay? And then last night, I sat in on the Region 1 ACT meeting with Commissioner Savis. That was interesting. A couple highlights there was an Oregon Freight Plan, briefing from ODOT, and a West Side multimodal improvement study from ODOT. Commissioner Savas made a comment, well, wait a minute, what about an East Side multimodal improvement study? It seems to me that the West Side, Highway 217, Sunset Corridor gets a lot of attention, and out here, we're still looking for that same attention. So Commissioner Savas put a bug in their ODOT's ear on that. Next Tuesday, I'll be at the Diversity Conference in Portland. And right now, I need to excuse myself to go to Canby for the luncheon down there with the folks in Canby.
Okay, Commissioner Scholl, thank you very much, and
I'll be back at 1 o'clock.
you betcha. Commissioner Fisher?
Just one thing I'm wondering if the board, so if you want to hold just 1 second, Commissioner Scholl, would be interested in knowing more about, there's been an effort going on for quite some time to connect some of the social determinants of health with the provision of health care. And if people saw the front page of the Oregonian, it talked about resources dedicated from the federal government to Oregon on this issue. It will be for people that are eligible for Medicaid, which is a big part of our population. I'm just gauging interest. This is something the Human Services Committee has been working on at AOC to really help work with the state in getting this waiver together, and now it's actually happening. I don't know if we want more information about this.
What are you asking exactly, Commissioner Fisher?
Just if people are interested in being briefed on how this will affect our residents in Clackamas County or not.
I don't know. Commissioners, you want to take a look at it? Let's review it. It's strategy and see what it involves. Yeah, I think there's probably consensus to do that, Gary.
Okay,
Let's
so
take a
that
look
was
at what
one thing I wanted
Is
to
it-
flag for
Is there a
folks.
time issue on it?
Oh, gosh, no. It's just information that, there's been times that this board has been so involved with the coordinated care organization and the political maneuverings with that. We've had emergency District 8 meetings in the past, but this is because of this new opportunities of really looking at health of people and looking at the social determinants of health, which are in many ways air conditioners for people that have health issues that need cooling, or assistance with housing will also be included, social services, other things that are not typical, you go to the doctor and get the bandage on your finger types of things. These are things to keep people healthier and to prevent illness. So it's good news for Oregon, and it's definitely a shift that I think as policymakers we would want to be aware
Really?
of.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much. We'll see what staff can come up with us for that.
All right.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I just wanted to let folks know I came back here to find something very nice on my desk, and that was an award from the Clackamas River Basin Council, because I had worked on, as many of you know, the Journey Down the Clackamas virtual seminar that we had for a year, and I helped arrange Senator Wyden to actually give the introductory speech when we started that program. So I came home to a nice plaque on my, a big surprise to me. I think that there were numerous other people who really did far more than I did, but I was very appreciative that that group valued my input. The other thing is that when Commissioner Smith and I were in Washington, D.C., lobbying our delegation, I had a wonderful conversation with Congressman Blumenauer. Actually, it was really interesting because he looked at the entourage. We kind of go in with a group of people, and he said, "Oh, you guys sit out here." He said, "Martha, you come back with me." So we had a great conversation. I did mention to him that there were certain points I had to make, because if I didn't, then the folks outside would be questioning me. So it was a really wonderful personal visit with him as well. And also, I had an opportunity with Senator Merkley that I hadn't anticipated. It turns out that the National Association of Counties had its PILT, Public in Lieu of Taxes, fly-in, and Senator Merkley was invited to speak, and I was the one person from Oregon who was there, so I had a chance to introduce him to the rest of the body. And I always tell my story with Senator Merkley in that he was an exchange student with the American Field Service to West Africa. I was an exchange student to the Philippines, so we always kind of exchange our secret American Field Service handshake. And for many of you that don't know about AFS, it is still going on today. It's an international exchange program for high school students, and both my daughters participated, one in Spain and one in Italy. And I think that it's a program that we always talk about it because it gives you a global perspective on the kind of local work that we do. So that's the news for me. I will mention quickly, I did get to kiss the Blarney Stone in passing, and that might be scary because I thought evidently you're supposed to increase your eloquence, and I'm not sure it's going to do too much for me, but it was a fun thing to do while I had a quick break this past week. Thank you.
I think you're doing fine.
Yeah,
On your health.
really, well,
Absolutely.
okay.
Thank you for that.
All right.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, thank you. Well, before I left last week for another family wedding, Commissioner Scholl and I and staff had met with some short-term rental, I would call them really experts, practitioners, if you will, that both own a lot of short-term rentals in multiple counties in the Northwest, but also manage them on contract for other property owners. So I'm hoping actually that we can put together something that, emulates something more practical that other counties are doing in a functional way, and a lot of good ideas. Every time I talk to these gentlemen, I learn something, and I learned even more last week. So I wanted to share that with you. Commissioner Scholl touched on some of the things that are going on in transportation. There's a lot of moving pieces in transportation, and since 2017, when the House Bill 2017 passed, my life, as far as my work as a commissioner, has changed significantly because there are so many new committees and so much more work and legislation and data. So it's been overwhelming. So I've been a very far busier and not being able to touch on other things that I'm interested in my role as a county commissioner. But I did want to just comment something, and you probably got wind today of asking about metrics and so on. And as my daughter was married a couple Saturdays ago and my niece was married last Thursday, my family's expanded. And of course, most people in my family, they got married are younger generations. And introducing and learning and meeting some of the people that are in their 20s and 30s that are working for governments all around the country, mostly the West Coast, and talking about what they do, and it's fascinating. We're not alone, of course. There's how many counties in the country? 3,200 or 3,000 some odd counties in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them work for counties, some work for cities, but it's fascinating to learn some of the other practices and how much they rely on, and actually talking to someone who actually, their job is metrics, and making sure, not as an auditor per se, but as an advisor to the financing of the county, how and what they spend their money on or should continue to spend their money on. So a lot of analysts, a lot of data, and right up my alley. I'm analytical by nature, and it was nice to know that there's a lot of resources out there and counties that are doing some good work, and we are here too. So I don't want to dismiss the work we're doing. And I know that we had a great interruption because of COVID, a great interruption because of the firestorms, a great interruption because of the ice storm. We've had some challenges here. So I want to just applaud our staff for the work they have done. But I think have a public-facing or at least commissioner-facing metrics that we can at least look at internally and see whenever we're doing our work here, I think would be of value, especially in the times we're facing ahead. So I'll conclude my comments there for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas and Commissioners. When we were in Washington, Senator Merkley took a hold of an idea that we presented to him regarding the Bull Run Bridge. In disrepair, it ranks 2 on a scale of 1 to 100 about safety. This county has applied for many grants over the years to fix it. We've been turned down. He's agreed to write a letter and have the entire Oregon delegation sign on to it, urging our grant application at the federal government to become a reality. I also talked to our governor's deputy chief of staff, who has now shifted from COVID to infrastructure, and I mentioned it to her. She also will be working with ODOT to try to get us some money to have that repaired. The reason why it's so important is because the Bull Run watershed supplies water to Portland and to the region, the entire city, and they need access to the bridge, and they're very, very heavy trucks over that bridge to maintain the facility and treat it. So that was very encouraging. Secondly, there's an important event tonight at 6 p.m., and that is the governor's debate. 3 women will be debating for their chance to serve as Oregon's next governor. Please pay attention, because we will have a change, because we will have a new governor, and I hope you all pay attention. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.